Hi, everyone. Welcome to Role Model Rebels. We have a fantastic speaker who's going to be sharing her story today. Her name is Sanjani Shah, Global Communications Leader. Hi, Sanjani.
Hi, really lovely to be here.
Thank you. So let's start with the simple question of who you are and how your story began, and what sparked the interest in you to be a communications leader today.
Well, my earliest memory of wanting to be in communications was from childhood. I was a complete bookworm. I was always attached to a book. I was always lost in the world of stories. And I remember reading a story. It was probably some cheesy Mills and Boons type story, but I then had an aha moment, which was I want to be a war correspondent. So I was really intrigued in becoming a journalist, and very specifically a war correspondent. But when it came time to choose my career, I think the Gujarati in me kicked in, and I realized there's not that much money in journalism. So I explored a little bit and realized that public relations or PR was an adjacent industry, and you got to work with journalists, and you were quite close to the kind of printing and publishing of stories, but without being a journalist. So I think that's what really shaped my career.
Oh, amazing. So you've always liked the idea of storytelling, narrative
Yes.
building. How did that bring, moments or areas in the kind of roles that you've been doing to shape, let's say your career as a communications leader? And what excited you about this journey?
Well, I mean, stories are everything. And I think that is the universal truth. Giving people a story that they can really connect with. And it's been interesting because I've worked for a number of multinational clients, including clients like Microsoft. But the one thing, whether you're working in corporate comms or you're working in consumer comms, the one thing is that the end person is a human being who gets compelled and intrigued by stories. So I always feel no matter what kind of audience you have, there's always a story to tell, and that's how you can, and it's also a way to simplify some really kind of dense material sometimes.
Yeah.
And I know you asked me about my journey and pivotal moments in my journey. And I would say that there are two that really stand out to me. I've had many, but there are two that when I thought about it, I want to talk to you about. One was when I moved to Singapore. So I was working in the UK at a large PR agency, and I got well, it was actually a end of year career discussion, and I said we were a globally networked agency, and I said, oh, I would love to work in one of our other markets. So that kicked off a conversation, and I had conversations with various markets, including Bangalore, um, but at the end, I decided to choose Singapore. So I moved to Singapore not knowing anything about Singapore. I did very little research. I had never been. I just landed there with two suitcases, I remember. But I still remember that feeling of landing there and just the wowness of everything. I can still feel the air, the heat, the humidity, that it made such a big impact on me. And I think that it was a huge turning point for me in my career because it exposed me to so much more, so many different things. I worked with so many different markets in Southeast Asia. I got a lived experience of working with different cultures and quite often at the forefront. At that time I was working in the technology industry, so really at the forefront of a lot of things. So that was one pivotal moment, but it taught me to trust, to have adventures, to have faith, and really to try new things. And eventually, actually, me moving to Singapore led to me finding my husband. We met in Singapore.
How
So
special.
Yes. So many amazing things came out of that. And then the other one was a manager who joined the organization where I was working. And her bio, when she got introduced, like the week before she joined, was all about meditation and the fact that she had some senior role in a large Buddhist organization. There was very little corporate stuff, very little about I did this and did this project. And I was so intrigued. And it goes back to that storytelling, like, what is this? Who is this person? And I remember my first introductory call with her. We didn't talk anything about work. It was um, she was talking about her meditation. I was talking about my experience with Vipassana. And she was very senior, very experienced. And yet, every one-to-one we had, we rarely spent time talking about skills or projects. We talked about if there was a challenge, how can you approach this challenge in a different way? How can you see the bigger picture? How can you see the whole and not the part? How can you rise above pettiness? So that this person being in my life and teaching me a completely new perspective and looking at things differently just shifted so much for me, and I became a completely new kind of leader from that. And it it was amazing because through her kind of guidance, I worked less, I stopped doing crazy hours, I stopped doing all that, and yet it just led to more and more promotions and better work. So it was a revolution for me. So those were the two big turning points for me, or big pivotal moments in my
Yeah.
career.
No, I really like how you can acknowledge the value of what work means to you, not only in the actual, execution of it, but also how it inspires you, And I think these are the key things as a leader one must really acknowledge, because it's not only about what you can bring to the table, but how you bring it to the table, because you're not working in isolation. Like today, more and more collaborative spaces, even though there might be some sort of, let's say, hierarchy, the space is much more, much more inclusive. And according to you, like I really like how it's turning into personal attributes, of a leader. So according to you, what are the like key personal attributes of leadership that one must have? Because we currently see, okay, 30 skills, and one of them, I was really surprised for 2030 was, design thinking, analytical thinking, AI, and there was resilience in one of them, and I think that's really appreciative, because, there is just so much happening that one, must look into as a, let's say, as a visionary.
Interestingly, resilience is one of my key points, and I think is what has got me here, and I think is what leaders really need. Um, because there's so much that changes. The world is so chaotic right now, and it's so complex. And the ability to navigate complexity. I'm working organization which is very large, lots of teams, lots of projects, lots of data. But human beings, I think, if someone is able to navigate that and kind of cut through all of those layers and say, this is what we need to do and simplify it, I think that is something that leaders today more than ever before need. And then the other thing I would say is the ability to equilibrium and be steadfast. I think that for me has come through spiritual training, but being able to not take things personally and be in equilibrium no matter how a project goes, whether it goes well or badly, or whether you hit your KPIs or not, stay in equilibrium. I think that's a really big thing leaders need to take on.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important area to also embrace, as a professional, because I was having a conversation with someone, and we were talking about loyalty. in the corporate industry. Today, people can't, I feel many people think, like, let's say for the next 2 years, next 3 years, I'm also part of the crypto industry. And if anybody survived 3 years in a company, that person is a keeper, you know. So,
I mean, I was 10 years at my
I
last
think, yeah, and I
organization.
think that mindset in some ways is important to have, but also, like you said, resilience. It also, you need it because there is uncertainty. And in your case, which is going to be on my next question, is that you face that, where you've had to kind of, abruptly change your journey, and navigate, professionally, emotionally, personally. Would you like to share that story with us?
Yes, absolutely. So I was working for a large beauty brand, global beauty brand, and I had worked there for a number of years, um, and well, over a decade. And to cut a long story short, we got bought by a private equity company. And within the space, I think it was 4 to 6 weeks, they dismantled the whole company. And we knew that there was going to be a lot of restructure, but what they did was they put especially the part of the company that I work for, into liquidation. Now,
Oh,
what that meant was when they let go of people, they didn't have to pay any packages, they didn't have to pay any severance. And so I think the restructuring we were all expecting, and that was fine. But when the rug was really pulled when it went into liquidation, we found out about it through the news, and everyone was mind blown because the part of the business that I work for was actually profitable. And they use all these loopholes and kind of business tools, or anyhow they use this to create insolvency, literally to get out of paying people their packages. And yeah, so I think that was it came as a real shock to a lot of people. And I remember the moment, suddenly the dawning of, oh my God, this is happening and this is what they've done. It was a kind of a real twist, and um, it was really hard at the time. But I had started a spiritual journey about 2 years before this happened, and I have a spiritual teacher, and I had begun a daily journey of meditation, a stillness practice. So I really feel that practice, the daily practice, the discipline carried me through this period and really, really, really helped me. And there were a few things that kicked in. And one was the understanding, and this was through the spiritual teachings, was that if you fight with what is, there is no way you can win. So in this situation, what was happening, the solvency of the company, there was nothing I could do about it. So I had to let go. I really had to let go and accept that this is happening and there's nothing I can do about it. So I let go of that and I couldn't control that. But what I realized is while I can't control what's happening on the outside, I am in total command of what is happening on the inside. I'm in total command of the choices I make. So I had the choice to go into blaming and bitterness, or I had the choice to go into acceptance and look at the opportunities. And it was completely my choice on where I directed my energy, and that understanding of the choices within me, and then choosing actively to not go down one route really, really helped me in that situation.
and I think that's very beautifully put, because to recognize what you can change, because I feel it's like gravity. When you try to push something away, it comes and hits you, right? And when you want something, there is a push and pull. And to actually, and I think as women, we also bear a lot of the external as well
Yeah.
as the internal, and to say that, okay, this is a point where you surrender. It's a choice, bringing that ownership, I think, is very important, that you let go of the fear and bring more clarity,
Yes.
and
And go
exactly.
on.
You tell us how you dealt with that.
Well, one thing I did want to say about acceptance, which I used to get very confused about, acceptance of a situation doesn't mean you lie back and become a victim.
Yeah.
Acceptance of a situation means you go into a place where you're neutral and you say, okay, this is happening. Then you make choices from that place. So I think for me, I saw this as a real opportunity. And again, this was thanks to my spiritual kind of teachings and the journey I was on. And it was really stepping back and say, okay, what is the opportunity that is being given to me here? And really interestingly, at
Call
the
this
beginning,
period a gift,
yeah, it was.
which
It's the
is
big, you know
fantastic.
what? It's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
biggest gift I've had in a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And of course, at the beginning, you're thinking, what is happening to me and why? And then when you look at it as a gift, it just changes everything. And really interestingly, at the beginning of that year, so this happened around Feb. By the beginning of the year, I had set kind of some was I really want to spend more time with family and friends. I felt I had really got caught in the corporate rat race a bit too much, and my my in-laws live in India, my family live in Kenya, and I felt I just want to spend more time with them. And then the other one from a spiritual intention was I wanted to learn and practice the practice of equanimity. So being yes, the practice of equanimity.
Could
And
you
what
tell us a
happened?
little bit what it is? Because, like, I don't know what it is, and I'm sure some of our
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I said that I was going to explain it, and then I'm like, isn't it obvious? But maybe it's not, as you say. So it's about being able to be so fine no matter what happens.
that state
So
of Zen.
yeah, and so but it's being able to be to go beyond, so it's being in equilibrium beyond what happens, beyond good and bad. So it's important that it's also beyond good. So when something good happens, you're in equilibrium. When something bad happens, you're in equilibrium. You go way beyond, and it's such a point of liberation. But of course it takes so much training and practice, and but we had learned about it as a subject, and I remember thinking, oh, if I could achieve that, that would be amazing. And my one of my intentions was I really want to learn this art. And I believe that the two things that I really wanted had at the beginning of the year, the universe gave me in abundance because I got the gift of time. So I was able to spend so much time with friends, with family. And that year, more cousins than ever came to London. It was an avalanche of spending time with family. So I remember saying to one friend that, "Oh, I have to be careful what I ask for because I asked for something and I got it in abundance." And then I had asked for practice of equilibrium, and then I got this huge thing that really shook me. And I remember thinking, oh, I know I asked for equilibrium, but I didn't want such a big test. But you know what? I got the big test, and it was amazing to really navigate that because unless you get a big test, how do you build your muscle around that?
Yeah. And I think the teaching is not only about a situation, but it's also building your identity, that shift, that who you were. And in today's day and age, I think with our changing pace, which is so f- fast,
Full
and
on.
on and so digital, and I'm sure you see that also as a communication leader, that the messaging, the storytelling has also changed with this kind of identity that we're all building today, right? And how does one, as a leader or as a person from the industry, as well as people accepting this message, how do you see that kind of scope growing, um in terms of, like, you know, how are people accepting the change, that they want to see, let's say, in products or in or in or in, let's say, just storytelling of a brand, because I feel it starts with what you're saying, that you're looking inside, and not just as, oh, what are the metrics, what is the product, right? Because I was listening to this podcast by, I can't remember who. He said you can make a great product with a great feature. The issue is going to be somebody is going to create something greater with a better price. So that shouldn't be a starting point. Next, he said, okay, then you have a fantastic outcome, which is also great, in terms of, building that story and branding about how you're going to sell, let's say a mug. Then he said, what actually really matters, and which stems from what you're saying, is emotion. He
Yeah.
said outcomes, goalposts, those will change, but an emotion is much more larger, you know, in a person, rather than looking at, a price point, because that also comes from the fear or whatever, whether I am that, whether I can afford that. And, and in the space that you're creating for yourself, it's fantastic. And how do you see that translating in the way that you're creating communication now?
Yeah, I think it was a quote from Maya Angelou, who said, "It what you really will remember is how people made you feel."
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really important. And, if I look back at, for example, the one manager I had who I said completely changed my trajectory in my life. It's not her brilliance as a communications leader. It's not the I got this award and that award. None of that. None of that matters. It was what she taught me and how she made me feel. She opened up my world. So I think that's what we'll always remember, how things or how products or how people make us feel.
Yeah.
So for me, that is the crux of communications, whether we have AI or digital, all that is just noise at the end of the day. If we remember the very heart of communications, how you make people feel. I think that is it. And then all the rest is just tools to make that happen, whether you make shorter videos, you make them faster,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is the in this kind of crazy digital world, what's going to become, or I already see is becoming more and more important, is the need for human connection, real life connection. And I think that as communicators, we have to create those opportunities, and also the non-polished version, so speaking from the heart, even as a brand, even if you're doing corporate comms, whatever you're doing, speaking from the heart, being willing to not show the perfectionism, so
Yeah.
not how you got it right, but also how you got it wrong. And
Yeah.
I think that, when vulnerability is what really attracts people. It's not perfectionism.
And I think you're so right, because a lot of sports brands use this kind of, outlook. And yes, to be fair, I think I've seen a lot of large beauty brands. Like, I feel Rare does that, beautifully, in terms of looking at what is perfection. Is it our imperfections? Is it our identities? And I think you're really spot on with that. I think building communication around emotion, vulnerability is, key in, bringing people together in a community driven, because I feel brands at the end of the day become community driven. It's really not about only your experience, but a lot of people within, you know.
Yeah, it's being able to provide that platform for people to share. And it's not just a monologue. It's not just me telling you how great I am and how great I'm doing. I'm just creating a space for lots of people to come and share their experiences.
Okay, what's next for you?
So I'm going to continue to explore my career in communications. I love podcasts. Podcasts is, I'm obsessed with podcasts, so that's something I'm looking at. But one of the things I really want to do is share my experiences and my learnings with younger people, especially women. And there are a few things I really learned through the experience that we've just talked about. But one was I would really encourage young women to start looking at their finances when they're a lot younger. Um, I was fine. I was able to take a bit of time out, but when the rug gets pulled under you, you don't want to be so destabilized and panic. So I would really, I think building a bit of a nest egg and really future planning that. I did, but I wish I'd done more of that. So that's a message I really want to share with young women because right now the corporate world, I mean, and the world in general, there's so much going on. There's so much uncertainty. Where we used to have a lot of stability in the corporate world is gone. You know, so many companies are restructuring. There are so many job losses. So I really encourage women to do that. And then the other one is to look at how they work. I used to really work hard all hours of the day, drive myself crazy. And I changed that and I would and I even now in the new role where I am, I have people reporting into me and there was one who was she was going on holiday and she needed to join a meeting for a course that she's doing and it was during her holiday and I was like, why are you doing this during your holiday? And she said, oh, because the course coordinator didn't have any other time. And I was like, of course she has other time. And I said, I ban you from doing this during your holiday. And for me, it's really encouraging people to have a balance. Learning from what happened to me, where I gave my all, like so much, and then it can turn off. I mean, the call that we had to let us know we were being let go lasted less than 5 minutes. And I had put my blood, sweat, and tears into this organization for
Yeah.
more than a decade. So I'm not saying don't work hard, but I'm saying work smart. Don't give every hour of every day to your work. You know, really look at your work-life balance and look at exploring other things outside of work because when that pipeline of that work ends, you don't want to be at a complete
Yeah.
loss.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
then the
right.
other part,
Exactly.
yeah, and then the other thing is just really my meditation practice has transformed my life, and I would love
Mm.
to teach people meditation and to really advocate for people taking a moment every day in their life, like a daily practice of stillness and going inwards, because it's changed my life.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sanjani. This was really, really inspiring. I think as a holistic conversation to bring not only where you started, how do you mitigate and navigate through challenges and abrupt endings, which is something I feel is one of our key skills to learn in today's day and age.
I tell you what, an abrupt ending is an invitation, so never see it as an ending.
And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. So lovely to speak to you.